Hey everyone, and welcome back to their Movie Mates video. I'm Matthew, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. So today we're back with another mini review, and I'm just going to pass over to Callum to explain what movie we're going to be talking about today. So Callum, off to you, buddy.
Yeah, so very recently, Disney Plus added another film to their selection, and that would be the on stage filmed film of Hamilton, the Broadway smash hit musical. Uh, no, this is a very weird situation because very recently, we've been doing some weirder films that are sort of out of our wheelhouse where
Sure,
we couldn't really rate this experience in a normal way because they weren't really films, and this is sort of in the same direction as that because
absolutely.
this isn't really a film, like it's a filmed stage play. So
Yeah.
I think this is sort of uncharted territory for the movie
Yeah,
mates.
man, I had the same thing. It's a one of a kind review in many ways. And we have covered musicals before in the podcast, but these they were like film musicals, whereas this is actually like as if someone has got a camera out and recorded a play. So it's a much different scenario, like you said, buddy. And I'm looking forward to getting into it because I think we might have some hot takes.
I think you might have some hot takes. I've been I've had nothing but good things to say, really.
That's good. But yeah, just before we kick off this mini review, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you've seen Hamilton, please be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. We'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already checked out our latest podcast, I wouldn't blame you because it was uploaded very early on Monday morning. So it's there, Indiana Jones, if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, man, shall we? Are we gonna do this spoiler free or spoiler, or we're just gonna go full spoilers because it's easily accessible?
I say just full spoilers.
Good
This is
man.
readily
Okay,
available if you
no
want to watch
worries.
it.
So do you wanna crack on,
You
man?
don't need to trek out to a theater or anything.
Yeah.
Yes, let's start. So obviously this film is about a lot of historical characters. So if we have a comment about like the morality of a character or what kind of person they seem like, it's all based on their portrayal and their presentation in this film.
Hmm.
If we say, oh, this character seems like a dickhead, we're not saying that the historical person was a dickhead.
Yeah.
It's their portrayal of this character in this film.
Hmm.
So please don't thrash us in the comments, please.
No, I do get you, man. I do get you, but yeah, I'm just happy to go by your remarks, buddy, and I'll chip in when I can if that works for you.
Yes, so we discussed the fact that this is an on-screen film stage play rather than a film, which took me by surprise about 2 weeks or so ago when the trailer released. Because I watched that briefly, and
Mhm.
I was very taken aback to see that when people described the Hamilton film, it was just recorded on stage. So I was expecting like high production value with sets and like you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
I expected a film, really, and it's not really what we got. And going into it, I had very low expectations for that presentation of a film, and I was very highly surprised, honestly. And I kind of understand why they chose to do that. And I would say probably the biggest reason is the magic of this play, of this musical, is Lin-Manuel Miranda. And if you're having, if you're presenting this, like 30 something year old man as a 19-year-old in a film, it's not going to have huge believability. You would
It's
at
a
least
great
have
point.
to cast someone else as Alexander Hamilton for at least the first half of the film.
It's a great point, buddy. We sort of had a similar experience with this sort of genre before outside of the podcast with The Winter's Tale. Well, I know we didn't go to see that one, but it was
Yeah.
I would imagine it's sort of a similar vibe there to this one. And yeah, and I think this is some of the best you know lighting that I've ever seen. I can't really call it a film, but it is a film. But it's in some ways, in some regards, it is shot like a film because it zooms in on the actors' faces, but in some ways it's not. But I can't applaud the how well shot it is and the lighting as well. It's just so good, man. And even the cast, there's not one bad pick of the bunch for me, and for it to be all singing, it's marvelous to be honest. A huge kudos to the cast. They nailed it, man. They nailed it. Any standouts for you?
Well, just how you mentioned the fact that all of the dialogue is sung. That was a huge concern for me because the only other film that I've seen that has done that was Into the Woods, and that was one of the worst cinematic experiences of my life. So I think that sort of
Yeah.
just marred that concept for me. And
Mm,
now every time I think of a musical, I think I fucking hope the dialogue isn't sung. I hope
mhm.
there's moments of dialogue, and then uh, you know, I don't know if you heard that. That was weird.
No, I
Uh,
didn't.
uh, what was I saying? But Into
Moments
the
of
Woods.
dialogue, that the lack of dialogue just in the film.
Yes, that was a big concern for me. And I was very surprised to see that I still managed to enjoy it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And for me, I think there's just so many great songs, really. It's really unusual that, for me, I'd watch a musical and enjoy like 90% of the songs, when I suppose like we've only seen a musical together once, haven't we, with Mamma Mia?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and they I suppose they're very two different musicals because Hamilton's all sung, which is unique in itself. And some of the tunes here are quite, they're not what I was expecting. They're sort of like modern, sort of rap inspired and R&B inspired, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by that. It's clear that some of the music was clearly inspired by like Kanye West and Jay-Z, and rappers like 6ix9ine and even like Destiny's Child. I
Oh
think
no,
there's
don't say shit like that, Matthew. Don't compare this to 6ix9ine.
no, no, not necessarily the tunes, but I mean some of the like vocals. I mean, because like some like the way I don't listen to 6ix9ine, but like from what I've heard and like other people's videos and stuff, it's very like aggressive. Really, and some instances it's quite like aggressive like rap, but
Mm.
I think it works. It really works here as well, and I'm a huge fan of the music in general, buddy.
Yeah, it's very much not my genre of music. I would say that rap and R&B are probably my absolute least favorite.
Hmm.
But like for a movie to succeed in actually making me enjoy that genre of music shows how good the quality must be. And
Absolutely.
sort of to go back to what you said earlier about sort of standouts in the cast, for me it would definitely be Jonathan Groff, who plays King George III,
Mhm.
and David Diggs, who plays Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. Especially David Diggs, just because he's one of the few people that has like a dual role, and also like he plays a big part in both acts as two different characters, and also that they both manage to do incredibly convincing accents and manage to sing whilst doing
Absolutely.
so. Uh, I
He's such
mean,
a remarkable actor.
like yeah, I think both of them are incredible, and especially because Jonathan Groff, I think that his English accent, it's very hoity-toity, but it's perfect for this sort of like piss take that they're doing
Yeah,
of George.
yeah,
I think it works beautifully, and he
absolutely.
has, in my opinion, probably not necessarily the best song of the play, but definitely the funniest, because some of the
Yeah.
songs are interjected with comedy, but like the entirety of "You'll Be Back" is just a
Oh
complete
yeah,
piss
it's a
take.
classic. And you know what it is, man? Like I'm a huge David Diggs fan from his appearance in Wonder, and I think he's such a talented guy. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's he's such a talented actor, and it's great to see him get more work. I think he had an involvement in like Zootopia, and I think he has a role in Soul, the new Disney film or Pixar film. Sorry, so it's going to be interesting to see where his career goes because he's a phenomenon. I think he's going to go so far.
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked to find out that this was recorded on stage in 2016.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago because I didn't think that Hamilton had been around that long, but it's actually been around since 2015, and that sort of I was taken aback as I watched it because I just don't resonate with it being that old.
I gotta
But
be honest with you,
you
mate.
know,
Like, I feel like a bit of an idiot because I thought Hamilton was like a 1960s classic, like Hairspray is or something. So I feel a bit embarrassed, but that's what I thought it was.
Well, I mean, I guess just because it's so ingrained in pop culture and people talk about like what a hit it is constantly, it feels like,
Yeah,
the sort of idea that we often talk about or about retroactive nostalgia, where something is just, it's so popular and so in the zeitgeist that it makes it seem like it's been popular forever. And, I think that's totally forgivable, because I mean, like some plays and musicals are just retired for a while and then they come back and they're a huge hit for a new generation, or
mhm,
they like freshen up the lyrics or freshen up the plot for a new generation. So I mean that very possibly could have happened, it just seems that like Lin-Manuel Miranda was, in the business of writing a classic.
Yeah,
So it's definitely we're watching a classic in the making, and
absolutely.
that it's nice to see that we've been able to watch it and given the opportunity to do that.
Hmm.
And one thing that you mentioned was the lighting, and I would say that the best use of lighting, this is the only time I've really referenced that, is during the opening number of Alexander Hamilton when they say, like, what's his name, what's your name, and then the light comes on to Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he's just like, my name is Alexander Hamilton. Like, I don't know, that just gave me chills. Like, it was so well executed.
Absolutely, absolutely. For me, I think the singing is excellent. Don't get me wrong. I think the singing is phenomenal. But the constant singing, for me personally, I'm I'm a quite a distracted movie watcher most of the time. So for me, like the singing did limit my understanding of the plot for some of it, to be honest with you. But apart from that, I think I don't think I've ever seen a better musical singing than this. This is just every actor. The fact that they've got actors who can act and sing and have like such a physical performance on stage, I don't know how they got it so right. This is marvelous. And for me, in terms of standouts, I really liked Philippa Chu as Eliza. I thought she was fantastic, and she sort of forms like a Destiny's Child sort of triplet, which was excellent. Apparently I'd went in that. Apparently they had backstage and stuff. They had sort of rehearsed with Destiny's Child songs, which I thought was really interesting. That they're actually inspired by
Yeah, that's
modern
cool.
music. So I mean, I'm a huge fan of her performance. I thought she nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there like really is not a low point when it comes to cast. So I mean, like we can say great things about every single one of them.
Absolutely.
Uh, I don't know where I was, but uh, yes. So another like we can just talk about. I would say there's a couple of really big standout musical numbers, and I would say amongst them are "Satisfied,"
Mhm.
because I find it incredibly sad. It was the one. It was the one song in the movie. So some of the songs like gave me chills because I'm aware of the pop culture influence that they've had. In the short time that this show's been around. But, "Satisfied" whenever what's whenever Angelica is singing about the fact that she's in love with Alexander Hamilton,
Yeah.
I've never
Feeling.
seen someone act as well as she does whilst singing, and
Oh, she
I had
nailed it.
huge reservations about the acting, while they were singing dialogue, and she absolutely nailed it.
Absolutely. And it's not so often that, I'd catch myself like tapping my foot, watching a musical or anything. But I caught myself doing that a lot because, some of the all of the songs, including the one you just mentioned, they're all so catchy and have such a great rhythm to them as well. And I just would have loved to see this in the flesh. I hopefully can in my later life. If it comes over to the UK or something, I'd love to.
Yeah, they have done London shows, but Lin-Manuel Miranda has resigned from the role. So
Oh,
I don't think he ever played like he played Alexander Hamilton in America and in Puerto Rico, but I don't think he ever performed like with the company that did it here. But I watched the clip and they did a real variety performance, the British cast, and like
okay.
they are just as amazing. It's not Lin-Manuel Miranda. They are also fantastic.
Absolutely, man.
So in this film, obviously, I don't know if you picked up on this just because you're not aware of the musical, and I only know this because my brother is a big fan of the soundtrack. But like, were you aware of the censorship for this film?
I wasn't nobody. Please enlighten. Please enlighten.
So basically, in the show, there are three. In the actual show, there are three uses of the word "fuck." There's a lot of shits and like stuff like that, but there's three uses of the F word, and in order to keep their like 12 rating to keep it like family friendly for Disney Plus, they were allowed to keep one, and then they had to censor two of them. So for two of them, like for one of them, there's like a record scratch covering the swear word. Then for the second, it's just muted, and it's done incredibly well. Like it just seems like they're making the conscious choice to do that on stage rather than it being done
Yeah,
in post production.
really well
So like
edited.
it,
Yeah.
it is really well done. But the third one and like the one that they decided to keep is like you know the character of Reynolds, like the husband of the woman that Hamilton is having sex with.
Yeah.
You know, he says like, you know, that it was my wife that you decided to fuck, but like, you know, they just say like fuck. So like, you know, they don't even
Yeah.
commit to doing it there. So there's actually no real utterance of the F word, in my opinion. So I was
Yeah.
surprised that that's the one that they chose to keep.
Absolutely, man. It's interesting. Like Disney Plus does have that caveats of censorship. I can understand why because it's a family-friendly platform. But that's a really interesting bit of trivia. That man, I didn't know.
Yeah, and to quote Lin-Manuel Miranda, he literally had to give two fucks in order to let the kids see the film.
I love that, man. And see on the cast, man. I just love how diverse it is. It's really
Yeah, you know,
remarkable.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, the slogan for the film was "America Then, Told by America Now," which
I love
I
that.
think
I
is, you
love
know,
that.
an
So
incredible way
good.
to encapsulate, you know, how it portrays these characters.
So
And
good.
yeah, just, you know, I'm so glad that, you know, for once they just, you know, hired the right person for the job. They're like, who has, you know, the right charisma, who is going to be incredible in this role, and they did that, and every single person is incredible. You know,
Yeah.
I love everyone here.
Man, it's great to see like bigger Hollywood stars like David Diggs do musicals and at Broadway. Chris Evans recently starred in Lobby Hero, I think, in Broadway. That was his first Broadway musical, and you
Is
know,
that where he was like a cop with like a porn stash?
yeah, it was. And I really wish I could have saw that with him because just to see him like in the flesh, that could have been amazing. But no, do you know what I mean? Though it is great to see like the Hollywood actors delve into theater because like we've seen Hugh Jackman, that's basically all his career is now, just touring the world, being doing musicals. So credit to him, man. He's one of a kind, and so's Chris Evans and David Diggs, so talented.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I like when, you know, Hollywood actors aren't just like, you know, clout chasing. They actually go back to the part of acting that they love. They're not just, you know, going to have a paycheck cut. You know, they're
Absolutely.
doing it because they love it. And I think that, you know, for a lot of actors, obviously it's a very, you know, drastic difference between acting, you know, in a film and acting in a play, because, you know, in a play or a musical you're acting towards the audience. You know, it's a completely different form. So it's very impressive to see anyone who can do both. And you know, that's pretty much
Absolutely.
everyone in this cast. So you
Absolutely.
know, it is just like I'm really surprised by, you know, the, you know, how incredible an actor can be, because you know, sometimes
Agreed.
I feel like Hollywood actors are guilty of just, you know, reading the lines how they're told to say them, and you know, pretty much they're quite uh they're quite, you know, expandable. You know, you could
Yeah.
just have anyone of that typecast, you know, in that role.
Yeah.
You know, there are some exceptional Hollywood performances, but you know, I don't think I really appreciated theater acting until I saw Mamma Mia and then this film. You know, I think I probably trivialized it until I actually, you know, saw it in person. And you know, it is a really incredible art form.
Absolutely, buddy. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And it's funny you mentioned like sort of actors being confined to scripts in big budget movies. Those like variety actor on actor interviews.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I was listening to one with Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson, and she had mentioned that in Marriage Story, the director just wouldn't allow any improv whatsoever, and I think that can really hinder an actor's performance. Don't get me wrong, Marriage Story, from what I've seen, phenomenally acted, but I think improv can certainly add so much to a film. Like
yeah.
I think that's part of the personality and the charisma of the respected actor. So if I was a director, I would just encourage it. Not say on
Yeah.
no improv. It seems a bit silly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a collaborative art form, and you've hired that actor for a reason. Like, you know, I mean, mostly, you know, like I would say half the reason that you hire like Scarlett Johansson is to have her name on the poster, you know, and
Yeah,
to get butts in seats, you know, the phrase I love. But you know, half of it is because she's an incredible actress. So you would think that you would utilize her, you know, at least give them, you know, like, you know, 10% like room to wiggle with the script, you know, like just so that they can convey the raw emotion. Like you don't even need to use you know, the take that they do that. You know, it's just to encourage like a collaboration.
absolutely, buddy. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So I would say that one of my favorite things about this film, which is very odd because, you know, I sort of like I like, you know, elaborately decorated scenery and stuff, and you know, that's sort of what what I often like pick out of films. But this is obviously a stage play, so you can't do much when it comes to set. So this is incredibly minimalistic, uh, but it's still incredible. They are so well,
Absolutely.
they are so able to depict characters in different locations. And one time in which I really picked it up was in the number which is like Dear Theodosia, where uh, where Aaron Burr like sings to his newly born daughter, and Alexander Hamilton sings to his newly born son. Because they're both standing side by side, but it obviously conveys that they're in completely different places. Not only like location wise, but also in points in their life, because one has just had an illegitimate child, one has had a child with their wife, so that they're both experiencing fatherhood, but they're having such different experiences, and I think that that was really well conveyed.
Completely, but it's a great juxtaposition there. It's quite like it's not humor, but it's like a good like physical contrast, if you know what I mean, like even on stage. And like you said, the set is quite minimalistic, but I even found, the rotating platform that the actors like walk across, and I think that's a fantastic visual, and even idea, and it really works to keep like the physical energy of the song, because the way all these actors like hopping about, and I think that really works. And
Yeah, and yeah,
it's remarkable, really. But what were you gonna say there?
I was just gonna say, yeah, that works especially well, whenever a character dies, because it
Oh
represents
yeah,
them like being pulled away, and it's a great visual metaphor.
absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. One thing I did want to ask you was, for this musical or film, whatever you want to call it, it's clear that, well, I don't know, was it intended to go to a platform like Disney Plus when it was shot like this?
Uh, well, I assume they just shot the footage with the intention of releasing it somewhere, and then
Mhm.
I assume Disney Plus bought the rights, but it wasn't meant to be released until October of 2021, which I think is like, I mean that that would have been over 5 years after it was
Yeah.
recorded, which I think's crazy, especially because they clearly had it edited and ready to go. So I don't know what their motivation was with waiting so long. I guess maybe Disney just didn't want it to like complicate their slate of movies. That
Yeah.
was their next like tent pole date or something. But obviously due to coronavirus lockdown, they took pity on us and released it early,
Yeah.
and I'm really glad that they did, because I
Absolutely.
don't think that I would have seen this in the cinema. Like I think that the 2 hour 40 runtime really would have put me off, and it kind of like put me off of wanting to even watch it at home. But I'm really glad that I started it and finished it. I did have to watch it in two sections. Like I
Yeah.
fully took
Yeah.
the intermission. Like
Me
whenever
too.
it went to intermission, I took a solid like half an hour to an hour away from it.
Yeah, and the question I wanted to ask you was, how do you feel about, including the intermission and including the audience in the musical? Because I think it really makes it authentic. I really love that. It doesn't feel like Disney is trying to sort of make this in their own image. It really feels more of like a musical production, wherein feels like someone has just got a camera out and started recording. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love that about it.
Yeah, because I definitely thought one that it was going to be in an empty theater with no
That's what
audience.
I thought.
I also thought that they would like I didn't understand when because fuck my life, Lin Manuel Miranda announced the fact that there was going to be an intermission. And I was like, that's a bit bizarre. Uh, and then also, yeah, like the audience reactions, yeah, it was kind of it was jarring for a moment, and then I really did recognize that it did add authenticity, like exactly what you said, and that surprised me, because I thought that they'd like we see the scene cuts, and then like we see like stuff moving around, and I was just surprised that they didn't cut that out, but yeah, it does add incredible realism.
Completely, buddy. Completely.
Yeah, so with the introduction to Thomas Jefferson, again played by Daveed Diggs, we see something a little different. Politics in a different light, and that would be a rap battle in the Senate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would just love to see that in our House of Commons, just to see how fantastically shit that is.
Oh,
Uh,
can you imagine that?
and
Can
like
you imagine
and
that?
like whilst they were doing that, like there are moments that just like come off as like sort of like a Jake Paul or a Logan Paul diss track. Like when the
Yeah.
Reynolds pamphlet is given out, and
Yeah.
they're like making it rain. Like that's just how it came across to me, and I
You know what
find
it
it so hilarious. And it just like it strongly seems to me that that's what would happen if Kanye is indeed elected as president.
Man, I saw that on BBC News, and I was like, shit, he is such a huge fan base. People would actually vote for him.
Yeah, but he's also like, because I thought, oh, how bad can he, like, he can't be any worse than Trump, but he's also a Trump supporter. And he made a statement that said that wearing like a Make America Great Again hat is like giving him a Superman cape, because he said that, like, because he lives in such a female dominated family, like, you obviously, I mean, even in his household with the Kardashians as a whole, are, like, they're obviously a entirely female family, aside from like Rob Kardashian, and then, the men that some of them married. So
Mhm.
it is a female dominated family, because, like, he said, but he used that to explain that, like, he was like, I love Hillary, but, basically Donald Trump's a man and I'm a man and I can't understand women. Was it like, I mean, allegedly, I don't want people coming for me.
Kanye will be
But,
doing a diss track
that,
on
that's
Callum.
pretty much how it came across. But, it's not a good sign that, he
Yeah,
said that, like, Donald Trump's, MAGA hat makes him feel like a superhero, basically. So I,
yeah,
I would have to assume that he would be running as a Republican. Like,
you'd
I
have
don't
to
I
say
don't know that
so.
he's going to go ahead with it, because he also announced this in 2016, like, that he was running for 2020. I don't know if it's going to happen, because, I mean, like, Joe Biden has been campaigning for months, so, I mean, he can't just, like, enter the race now, can he?
Yeah, like I saw a lot of articles that said he hasn't actually signed the official form that you have to declare yourself elected, and also like see his probably, I don't want to assume anyone's political views or anything, but from what he said and who he supports, I would imagine he'd be a Republican supporter. But that being
Yeah,
said, I,
definitely.
I don't think it's in Kanye's personality to stand for a mass party. I think he'd stand as an independent, to be honest with you. But if he didn't stand as independent, I think he'd probably go Republican. But that being
Yeah,
said, like I think Kanye is a very deep guy, and he said a lot of crazy shit and a lot of really bad shit, especially like about slavery and stuff. Like I will not get into that, but he said a lot of insensitive things. And I don't think he is a bad guy. I think he's a very talented guy, but he just has trouble expressing that. He's paved the way for music for the last 10 years, 15 years. So, credit to him for that. But that being said, I don't know how well informed and how educated he is on political matters. Like I can't imagine Kanye like having sorting out budgets for like local councils or anything like that. Can you?
yeah. Well, I mean, I can't imagine Donald Trump doing that either.
Yeah, it's a
But,
good point.
if Donald Trump can come out with so many, you know, uh, racist remarks about minorities, and for Kanye to still support him,
I know.
I just don't know how I can trust his judgment. I mean, obviously, we don't live in America, so we don't have to feel the knock-on effects unless he decides to nuke us. And, like, who knows? I think that was a genuine concern with Donald Trump. Like, people were like, oh, well, we can't be, like, not worried, because, I mean, he probably has, like, an itchy trigger finger and
Oh
nuclear
yeah.
codes. So, I mean,
Yeah, do you remember at the
we
start of
better
this year,
watch out.
man? Even at the start of this year, there was tension between Iran and stuff, wasn't there? Like at New Year's Day, pretty much.
Yeah, people had called that, like, World War III was going to happen, and, I was shitting myself, and then coronavirus happened, and, many other cataclysmic events, basically. So 2020 has it's not been an ideal year, has it? It hasn't been a banner year for fun. It's been pretty shit. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it has been, man. It has been, with that, and then the Australian bushfires, and then coronavirus, man. It's not been a good one, man. Well, we're halfway through now, and hopefully the other half is good, because I saw an announcement that like the Northern Irish government are putting in like 33 million for like cinemas and stuff like that, which is good.
Like, to keep up, like, health procedures and stuff.
I think it's that. I think it's also for like yeah, health procedures, and then just in general, just to support the industry. So that would be good if we see more cinemas opening up or something like that, or at least cinemas staying around a lot longer. Because obviously the movie house shut down. That's really sad to see. But hopefully like there's like the QFT remain open. Like I'd imagine that would stay open, but you never know.
Yeah. Are you going to be comfortable going to a cinema? Because the idea of being in an enclosed space with no windows still, the idea makes me uncomfortable.
The idea does make me uncomfortable, but I think by the time it'll open, hopefully it'll be three seats, be two seats between people, or like different sitting different rows or something like that. So hopefully it'll be fine. But like I think it'll get to the point where like you and I will be willing to see literally any movie in the cinema as long as it's safe to do so. So we'll just like go for whatever, because I just can't wait to get the feeling of just being in there with you or your dad or your brother just again, because it's they're some of the best nights I've had.
Yeah, I plan to fully just use my student maintenance loan to like go to the cinema like once a week, because I would say like the peak amount of movies I've seen in 1 year is probably like 35. So I'd kind of like to just see one a week or so.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of the classics at the QFT as well with you. It'd be fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know that like some cinemas are being a bit sneaky and like they're rolling out, some absolute bangers and like some classics to like entice people like to come back.
Yeah.
But it seems a bit sneaky. But some are doing like the Dark Knight trilogy or you know Empire Strikes Back. That kind of vibe, so that people are sort of enticed back. But the idea still panics me.
Here's a question: if they re-released the Raimi trilogy in the cinema and say they said, "Okay, it's the extended cut or something with deleted scenes," would you go? Would you go?
Yeah, yeah, I mean 100% yes. Do you mean if it was like a 10-hour event, like with an intermission in between each film? Because
No,
then
just
yes,
well,
100%.
yeah, even something like that. Like, even if there was no changes to the Raimi films, I would still want to
Yeah.
see them in cinema for the first time.
Oh, 100%. Because I think, it's kind of a weird sensation in my mind because sometimes, obviously like in the case of like Blade Runner, the original film, the final cut, with like additional scenes put in and it being changed narratively so that it makes more sense. Obviously, I want to watch that cut of that film, but there's some films that I love so much because they're bad. I wouldn't want scenes added in that make them good. Like the way
Yeah,
there's like a couple like Sandman scenes in Spider-Man 3 that when you actually add them into the narrative, it actually makes the movie better. I kind of
yeah,
don't want that. I kind of wish
yeah.
that
I
they
know.
would make it worse. Like I don't like the way people say like, oh, I don't like the new cut of Star Wars because they added new special effects and they sort of ruined the magic. Like I don't want them to ruin the magic by trying to make Spider-Man 3 better.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Completely, buddy. Completely. I rewatched Spider-Man 2, or some scenes from Spider-Man 2, sorry. And it's so good, man. I love that film. And um, I wouldn't be surprised if this episode gets turned into a podcast, to be honest.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it's yeah, just definitely.
But yeah, no. Any other points in the film yet from you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have a few. I would say aside from King George's entrance, I would say the second funniest moment in the film is the 6 foot tall 20 something rapping 9 year old. I would say
It's huge.
that's quite hilarious. Obviously it got a big laugh from the audience, but I don't think they took the moment to consider that this kid's meant to be 9.
Yeah, but I think we mentioned that with is it? Well, can I call him Lynn?
Yeah, sure. I
Lynn.
mean, I try my best, to
We've seen
say
that
his
with
full name,
Lynn,
but
where he's supposed to be like 19 or something, is it? Yeah.
in the first act, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it works. Like, it doesn't have to be super realistic, because I think the performance is perfectly serviceable, and the same goes for that guy who plays the 9-year-old. Like, it can be forgiven, I suppose.
Well, I mean, it helps that it's hilarious. Like if it just came off as weird, that would be one thing. But the fact that they actually play it for comedy is much to their strength.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think it only works in the theater. I think if they tried to do that in a film, it'd be a bit embarrassing. I mean, you see some films that sort of have a character over a certain period of time, and they sort of like age them down and then age them up, and then there's a point where it meets in the middle, and
yeah,
they're the actual age that they are. Like say with Brad Pitt and like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, they had like the money to do special effects and stuff for that. Where a lot of films just like stick like a gray wig on them and hope for the best.
yeah,
So yeah, I think this sort of yeah, this idea of them playing the same person at the same age only really works in the theater, especially because they're making no attempt to make them look younger or older. They're just like it's just Lin Manuel Miranda.
yeah.
But I loved it.
Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely.
Yeah. So uh, I had really supported Hamilton, and like throughout all of the first act, we see the beginnings of sort of the moral clashings between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. And I always find myself siding with Hamilton, and I think it's honestly because I always question someone's character, whenever they're able to commit adultery.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's a different situation with Aaron Burr, because he was having an affair with a married woman. He wasn't himself betraying his spouse.
Yeah.
He was,
Unknown.
he
Unknown.
was
Yeah.
he knew that he was helping someone betray their marriage. So I sort of started to morally side with Alexander Hamilton, and then he goes and cheats on his wife. And
Classic.
as I said, I'm not judging the historical figure. I'm judging the character presented in this film.
Mhm.
I'm aware that this is historically accurate, but I don't know to what degree. So I'm simply judging the character as seen in this film, and I thought, what a piece of shit. Because by all accounts, his wife seems perfectly lovely.
Yeah, I respect the film for keeping that in, to be honest. Like the film doesn't try to sanitize its deep themes about like adultery and like even like pregnancy and stuff like that. But no, like I respect the film keeping that in because you think with Disney, they'll like, oh, the kids will not like it. We'll not keep it in. But no, I'm glad they kept it in. But yeah, I do agree with you. Like it's definitely a morally condemnable or certainly ambiguous act.
Yeah, Alexander Hamilton, I was thinking, was the hero of this story.
Uh-huh.
And then it seems, well, like when it comes down to it in the third act, him and Aaron Burr both sort of, morph into anti-heroes,
Mhm.
because they obviously had a huge impact on history. Hamilton especially acted
Founding
as a,
fathers, I
like,
suppose.
a forgotten founding father. Sorry.
No, as I said, founding fathers, I suppose.
Oh yeah, so I thought you said like, gotta go, mate, bye. But I was like, yeah, he's yeah, we're fully aware of the four men that are carved into Mount Rushmore, but I'd honestly never heard of Alexander Hamilton. I think until maybe a few years ago when people actually explained the plot to me. I think before that I thought that this was a fictional character that they had inserted into a historical setting,
Yeah,
and then I found out that he was actually a real historical figure, and that sort of like changed my perception.
absolutely.
And it's incredibly interesting. And I was watching an interview with Lynn last night, and people were sort of saying, I think it was on the Graham Norton show. It was on the Graham Norton show, or the Stephen Colbert show, where he was asked, oh, like what made you take this to Britain, because uh, the British don't always know American history. And he said that that's true. Like the British people don't know American history, but neither do we.
Yeah,
And I think that's a very fair point, because this is not a well-known figure, and to have such a popular you know to have such a popular musical written about someone that isn't well known but needs to be well known, I think
absolutely,
a
Callum.
huge it's a revelation to Lin Manuel Miranda.
Absolutely, Callum. And it's really interesting, when you think like some of the founding fathers were also like from our country. Well, our country didn't exist at the time, but in our area, maybe is probably a better way to describe it, sort of in our region, which I think is really interesting in itself. Like not just one, like a couple of them, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I suppose, yeah, Northern Ireland. It is odd, like how many routes we have to America, and I think that I think that we're sort of brought up a lot in that like Western American culture, which
Absolutely.
I find that I mean we don't have accents that resemble English accents. I think that ours are very Americanized, and a lot of our uh phrases and idioms and stuff are quite American. So I don't think that people would be able to pick that, like where we're from if we went to America. I think people would be like what the fuck is your
Yeah,
accent?
yeah. I think so. I think so.
I mean, like my dad had to do like a voiceover for a lift. Like this is a weird story. Out like it's fine, but like like he had to do a
Was he
voice
like a
a
tannoy?
voice. Well, like you know the way that he used to he well, like the way my dad used to be he used to build like design and build lifts. So like what one time they didn't have anybody to record the audio for like like going up, going down. So he recorded that, but he's from Ballymena, and like I think it was going to America, and they were like, "The fuck is this dude saying?" So like, like I think he
I
got
love
some shit
that.
for that. But I mean,
That's such an interesting story. I really enjoy like in the description like on today's show, Callum and Matthew discuss that like it's gonna be funny to like put that in like Callum and Matthew discuss Callum's dad as a lift or something else could be funny.
but I could have sworn that we had one of the most easy to understand accents. I mean, obviously, there is obviously a certain niche, a certain percentage of every country where there's sort of like a incomprehensible accent, obviously. But and there is a side to that in Northern Ireland. But I would have thought widely ours would be quite easy to understand, but it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, I remember listening to a Joe Rogan podcast where he went over to Northern Ireland he went over to the Odyssey, not the SSC, for the UFC, and he was in like a bar or something, and then there was people like chatting to Joe Rogan, and he was just like, "These motherfuckers don't even speak English, man." I'll link that in the description. It's hilarious. Like he just completely didn't understand us at all. And to be fair, in Belfast there is a wide array of accents, so I can understand why he would struggle. But I don't know. I don't think we're that bad. Like,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, my accent's quite gross. Like just on certain words, just because I know that. Like, do you ever get a word or a name where you know that you're saying it wrong, but your accent doesn't allow you to say it correctly?
floor,
See, oh, like, do you mean like a flyer?
flower,
Like, as in,
flower. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I say flyer, but yeah, most people say flower and char, par. But like, I try to pronounce it as much as I can,
What's
just
the
because I've
word
been
for
I've been
you?
indoctrinated into that. Uh, well, like what really annoys me is the guy that wrote such hits as Starman and Heroes and Life on Mars, Space Oddity. His surname, bit of an issue, because I don't think we can really pronounce his surname. People widely incorrectly pronounce it as David Bowie, and I do that out of necessity because I can't say how you say it without going like, oh no, I can't
See,
even
I
say
saw
it.
an
Like,
interview with Alice.
because
I think it's
it's
Alice Eve, and
David
she says David
Bowie.
Yeah, she's like David Bowie.
Yeah, but we can't do that. So like, and I
David
really don't want to
Bowie.
go around and go David Bowie, like
David Bowie.
I refuse to do it. So like I just have to relent and
David
pronounce
Bowie.
that incorrectly.
Yeah, that's a good one actually. That's a good one.
I
David
also
Bowie.
don't I also don't like I don't like a T being substituted for CH. When people say YouTube, like I can't hack it. Like I say YouTube, like or
YouTube. Yeah.
I try to soften it because I get the piss taken out of me.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a good one. Like we've talked a lot about accents in the podcast recently. Like
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna say the last 4 episodes have just been about accents.
that's good though. That's good. Like I enjoy it. I enjoy
Consistency is becoming a bit.
it. Any more remarks from you, buddy?
Oh yeah, a fair few, I'll tell you. But we see sort of a very different take on the presidency, obviously because this is very early days. We're brought into the story, during the Washington administration. Then we move to
Yeah.
Adams, and then as Thomas Jefferson is running, we're told that, and I didn't know this because when we studied American politics, it was recent history because uh, our exam board likes us to have the finger on the pulse, to be
As
as
our
relevant as
politics teacher would
possible.
say.
So
Yeah.
yes, so I didn't actually know how back in the day, the vice presidency worked. In this time, the vice president was actually the runner up, and like Thomas Jefferson says, oh, that's bullshit. We need to change that. But I mean, that seems like the most democratic way possible because that's pretty much how our Northern Ireland executive works. Where we have the first minister, who's Arlene Foster with the DUP, and then the deputy first minister. So it's an equal title.
Yeah.
Given to Sinn Féin and Michelle O'Neill,
Yeah.
because I think that then if you have them in like almost an equal or at least a very high position, that's like a scrutinizing body that's at a very high level. You don't have to listen to them because they're your vice president, but you can relinquish some authority to them, and then they act as a scrutinizing body. Like, does that not seem quite democratic? to you?
Yeah, because in America they just the whoever wins the presidency is just like, yeah, I'll just pick this person. You know, it doesn't seem
Yeah,
doesn't seem
yeah, like they have a running mate that they like run with. You know, like I don't know who I don't know who Joe Biden's uh
is it
sorry, vice
oh,
president is.
is it like AOC?
Oh, is it?
Is it? I don't know because I haven't heard, but I thought I didn't know if she was like running for election. I'll have a wee
Uh,
Google.
yeah, I don't know because I don't really understand the rules because they say in this film that that you had to sort of resign from the Senate in order to run for president. So
He
would
hasn't
she have had
announced
to
yet.
resign from Congress? He hasn't announced yet. But I
Yeah,
mean,
he says it's
aren't
gonna
the
announce it in
elections in like
August
September?
1st. Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
Like that's mad. Like you would think that you'd need to make like an informed decision, and like you would think like for him to campaign, and that be the rules around the vice presidency, he would need to campaign like with his choice.
Yeah. He said he has promised to select a woman, so it could be AOC. We don't know.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't think we really delved into her as an example for our American politics, but
Yeah.
she's doing wonders for representation and
Absolutely.
human rights in general. So I mean, she'd
Okay,
be an
yeah.
incredible choice.
And very young.
I mean, I don't think Joe Biden's going to win. I
No.
mean, I'm not saying I would like him to win or not like him to win. We're not expressing our political views here today because we don't want to cause an argument or a rift in the viewership. But I just think
We don't want to lose subscribers.
it's probably just going to be Donald Trump again, isn't it?
See, at the
Because
start
like
of the year, like
that's just what's easy to some people.
we can say who we think will win, right?
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, I think that Donald Trump will win again.
I at the start of the year I would have said yeah, but I think people, even Trump supporters, will probably turn their back at him, or some of them will because of his kind of coronavirus pandemic. So I would say probably Joe Biden, but it's sort of like it's gonna be a tough one. Like with Hillary the first time round, a lot of people would like, oh yeah, Hillary will win. All the papers endorsed her, but then that's probably and that's probably the exact reason why Donald Trump won, because people think, oh yeah, he's not going to get elected, but then that's exactly the reason why he would get elected. So in this one, from where I'm coming from, he probably will get elected again. Like, you never know, man, with him.
Yeah, he just won because of the electoral college. Like, he got support in Florida and that swayed the vote. Like, I mean, I didn't really understand the idea of an electoral college until, like, I mean, we've gotten very political, but I mean, that's what this whole film's about. But yeah, the electoral college I didn't understand until very recently, and it pisses me off. And like Chris
Yeah.
Evans has talked a lot about how that pisses him off.
Yeah, Chris Evans has been. I think in the last year, certainly, he's become a lot more political, and it's good to see big actors be okay with that and sharing their views. So I gotta respect him for that. He's had a lot of involvement with both Democrats and Republicans alike. So good on him.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, like so do you sort of agree that like to have a scrutinizing body in a
Oh
high
yeah,
position is a good thing? Because I mean, like
yeah,
we have seen just like like create like crazed presidents basically who have like an insane power complex, who can't be brought down to earth because their vice president is also from their party, so they're just
yeah.
going to be
A
endorsing every
yes man
decision they
rule.
make.
Yeah,
Whereas yeah, exactly. And whereas if every decision they made, if someone was like, do you really want to do that, could we not do this, they still have the power to say yes or no, but they'll still have like a voice of logic or a voice of not logic. If say you know I mean, if a good president was chosen and then they had obviously someone from another party who was scummy or immoral, you obviously wouldn't uh want them to take their advice, but it's still good to have, like, any scrutiny is good,
yeah.
even if it's not taken to heart, it's still
Checks
good
and
to have it.
balances.
Yeah, it just creates representative democracy. Even though like I obviously don't agree with uh many political views that are held by the Republicans in America. I've shared some political views, but obviously uh,
It's fine.
Donald Trump has made many racist remarks. So obviously there's a
Yeah,
lot of cause to not support his ideals. So if you had like a Democratic president and then you had the runner-up be Donald Trump, you obviously wouldn't want him to have an influence. He still, I think, needs to be there to support, the idea of democracy. Even if his influence shouldn't be taken into account, really.
Absolutely, buddy. And it's funny you say, because in the country we live in, I think the scrutiny is good from a position of the two parties at the top are very opposing. Whereas I think if you have, I think in some instances that can also be a negative, because the one party feels like all they can do is criticize. Like if one,
Yeah,
so let's say for example let's say, well, I don't know, let's say use the example of Sinn Féin. Sinn Féin all like, and I don't want to get political. This is not me stating my political views. I'm just using an example. It could be the DUP, it could be UUP, it could be whoever, right? This is just picking an example because of the two biggest parties. So, like Sinn Féin would probably feel like all they can do is criticize, because if they are viewed to be agreeing with the DUP, they might lose voters pretty much. So it's a really difficult one to form that balance between scrutiny, but also having the confidence to say, okay, I think that's a good thing what you're doing. Like, it's very rare that we'd see Sinn Féin acknowledge that the DUP are doing a good job, or likewise DUP acknowledging that Sinn Féin are doing a good job. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and because of that, we do seem to be constantly reaching a stalemate, and a lot of not much legislation is passed. We pretty much have, to get the biggest reforms that we've had in legislation. It was actually from Parliament.
Yeah.
Like we weren't actually able to make those decisions for ourselves. So I mean, I think when they all have, I think it's good when they all have a say, not necessarily when they all have a vote. Because I think
Good
then
point.
that means that legislation can't get passed. But if they all have a voice, and then the one decision is left to the majority winner, I guess. That's probably the best use of democracy. But obviously I'm not a political scientist. I can't
I know what I mean.
can't claim that
That's
my,
fair,
my views should be taken into account. You
man.
you can cut any of
I know,
this that you
like
want,
I think
Matthew.
I think this has been a really good topic, man. I think you've made fantastic points, buddy. To be honest, and I think a lot of people assume that our generation is very like I think our generation gets a lot of stick uh from the right, suggesting that we're like extreme left, we're socialist Marxists. But I don't think people realize like our generation is not as left wing as people think it is. Like there's a lot of contrasting opinions, even of people our age and even a bit younger. Do you know what I mean? So, I think there's a hidden perception there that people don't fully comprehend. You know, I'm not going to, we're not here to say our political views or anything. We're just having a debate about, a political film in essence. So it is a really interesting one, man. And I think you've shared some really great points, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. It was great to hear from you about it, because I mean, I don't we don't often talk politics. Obviously because of Corona, we kind of just we share in the few moments that we've had together in person,
Yeah.
and then obviously we're talking movies when we're on the pod. But yeah, it's interesting to talk about politics again, because I haven't really considered it in quite a few months since we left school. But yeah, it's I was gonna say it's fun to think about. It's not really. Politics is a mess. Let's be honest. There's no one definitive way to do it right. There's never been a situation where everyone's happy. That's impossible.
Yeah. Just by
But I mean,
compromise, isn't it?
maybe it's not impossible, but it hasn't happened in our history, and we can just hope that things are better in the future.
Absolutely, buddy. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Callum. Well put. Well put, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a podcast. Like, this
Yeah,
isn't a
that's
mini
no
review
worries.
anymore.
No worries. Getting
Yeah,
closer to the 50 already.
I was gonna say that means that like it lines up where the non Disney films are the even numbers now. So
Oh yeah, it's a good point actually. Yeah, because the Disney would have been the 50, wouldn't it? Part five.
oh wait, no, that's not true. Because no, I'm wrong. Never mind. I'm wrong because Indiana Jones was the last episode. Sorry, I forgot.
No worries.
But yeah, to get back to the film, I guess.
I guess.
Uh, so I very much was not surprised that Philip was shot, because I mean, this musical is very effective in sort of presenting the rule of three. There's three duels in the film that impact Hamilton's life in a big way.
Mhm.
The first, like, he learns a lesson from George Washington about like honor and stuff, and then the second one is his son's death, and the third is his death. So I wasn't taken by surprise that Philip died. But I was just baffled by the idea of like someone chatting shit, like you can just murder them, like,
Yeah.
and that's just fine.
Yeah, and that's
Like
maybe it's
that took me aback.
and like we said, buddy, about Disney not sanitizing the content. Like I'm glad they didn't because we have like adultery, like illegitimate pregnancies, and then murder. So I'm glad they kept it sort
Yeah.
of realistic and authentic to the time.
Yeah, I'm sort of glad that I didn't pay. Like, I mean, I obviously did not pay enough attention to the opening number because I like it's sort of how you said where, because they're singing the dialogue, sometimes the plot is lost on you, and sometimes I didn't understand what was going on. Like, at a few points, I just didn't get it. And one example of that was in the opening number of Alexander Hamilton. Burr actually has the line of like, "I was just the fool that shot him," but I didn't realize that he was talking about Alexander Hamilton. So I had no inkling of how this film was going to end. And
Yeah,
obviously, it ends with his death by Burr's hand. And, that was
yeah.
obviously not just alluded to, it was explicitly said in the opening number.
It just
And it
go
was sort of
it
weird
goes
for them
by
to like,
you. It goes
yeah,
by.
it's like one, I didn't notice it, but if I had noticed it, it's sort of weird for them to, sort of like reveal their hand so early on, where
Circular
they're like, it
structure.
will end at his death.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is a circular structure, but if I'd been paying attention and I didn't know about the history of the character of the historical figure, I don't know, that might piss me off if they've just like, spoiled the ending. I know it's history, but I mean, if you're still trying to tell a fun, entertaining story, and I
Yeah.
guess if you like sort of reveal your hand very early on, I guess it's smart and it's sort of just you only get it if you watch it a second time or if you actually pay enough attention, unlike me. But
Very
maybe
true.
other people were maybe other people like that.
Yeah, I think that goes to like the like the mystery behind Alexander Hamilton as a character. Like he's not very well known. Like it would be, I suppose it would be explicit, if in a JFK musical, if he said, "Yeah, he's going to be shot by Lee Harvey Oswald or whoever it was,
Yeah,
whoever it was." Leave your theories in the description in the comments.
allegedly. Yeah,
Allegedly,
I love learning about that.
so good.
Yeah,
He
I
gives
mean,
history.
maybe we'll get into that if we ever do a movie about the JFK assassination. But yeah, I'm not convinced. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist
Oh,
sometimes. I'm not convinced.
it's an interesting one, buddy. We'll get into it one day. We'll keep the viewers intrigued. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
And I think
yeah.
what. Oh yeah, no, go ahead,
Oh, I
Matthew.
was gonna say, like, I suppose it adds to like, they just explicitly tell you that Alexander Hamilton's gonna be killed, and it will be, you know, useless to do that in like a JFK musical or anything. So I think it works here. But if he was a little bit well known, I think it would have been a given. If you know what I mean, like it works in this because of his level of fame. Do you get me?
Yeah, sure. And I think that one of the biggest strides of this film is its ability to make you care about characters who don't have that much screen time. I mean, I would
Absolutely.
say that Philip maybe has, five minutes of time on stage, really, where he's acting as the character. Obviously, like all of the cast sort of like, takes a step back and joins like, the company, like the main chorus. So, he is on stage for a while, but the character of Philip is actually only seen for a few minutes. And especially in his death scene, like they really made me care about him
Yeah.
in an incredibly short amount of time.
That definitely goes down to the actor's performance as well, buddy, completely. And it's just the fact that whoever has written these songs, the script is so amazing. Like this is some of the best written tunes ever, and the fact that they make you care about the character so well just during his singing is fantastic.
Do you not know that like this is all Lin? Like this is all Lin.
It's so is he just like the creator? Like is it like if that is the case, what he says it is, like that is amazing, isn't it? Like he's so talented.
Yeah, the story is based on, I believe, a 2004 biography of Alexander Hamilton. So that's where he extrapolated the story. But like the music and the like in theater they call it the book, was written by him, which is basically just the script. But he's responsible for the entire show, really.
I'm having a wee Google of him here now, man, and he's his CV is packed, man. He's a very talented guy. Like
Yeah, I mean he was in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and he was in Mary Poppins Returns. Like he's not really had like there's never been a dip in his career. He's just
yeah,
it seems that he's just been building and building on this peak that started with Hamilton.
here's an interesting one. Miranda contributed music for scenes in Star Wars: The Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, as well as Moana. Man, he's a very talented guy.
Yeah, I knew about Moana. I had no idea about Star Wars. So that's really interesting.
It is, man, absolutely. Such a great guy. Like,
Yeah. So, we sort of we've talked a lot about politics and presidency and election, and it is sort of bizarre to see a political musical, but I mean it absolutely works. And I think a huge part of the story that we definitely have to mention is Aaron Burr running for the presidency against Jefferson. And I'd written down like why would anyone vote for Burr if he is intentionally campaigning with no platform? Surely by going after every demographic after fuck my life by going after every demographic, he goes after no demographic. And then as I was writing that, Hamilton explicitly points that out and says, I'm not going to endorse you because you stand for nothing.
films for
And
yourself away. Yeah.
yeah, and absolutely, and that is a moment where I think you are sort of meant to see the dichotomy and like, is Burr right, is Hamilton right? But at least in that moment, I was like, if you want to be a politician, you want to be a president, you do have to stand for something.
Yeah.
You need to have
Great point.
ideals and morals, and I'm sure he does, but he's just too scared of like uh sort of detaching himself from one side of the people that could vote for him, that he just doesn't commit to anything, and he just comes across as like a people pleaser. And that's not what you want in a president. Like, you want someone to make tough decisions, but the right decisions.
It's a great point, buddy. It's a great point. And do you think it's an issue in society, like people are scared to point out to express their political views for the sake of people pleasing, or not? Like, what do you think?
um from what I've seen, no. Because I feel like you know yeah, as I said, don't want to make it, like
Yeah.
like I'm judging
No, I
people
know, I
for
know.
their political beliefs. But I don't judge people's political beliefs. I judge bigotry, towards human rights and such. But I think that the vast majority of people who have what would be considered by most people a controversial opinion on important political discussions or human rights discussions, I think they're usually very ready to share,
Yeah,
which is why I have a lot of conversations that I don't enjoy having, with people that are very very hard line and won't change their mind. So I mean, there's no point in talking to them really. But I think I don't think I've ever felt that I've met like someone with closeted views. It seems to me the most people who have a controversial opinion, or as considered by society a controversial opinion, are usually quite happy to share it. Like, what are your thoughts?
yeah, I think society's definitely shifting the way where political viewpoints are certainly being expressed more freely. If we even look in just culture in general, with characters like Donald Trump, and I'm not expressing any political views on these people, but Donald Trump and Katie Hopkins and Tommy Robinson, like, so these sort of people are very, they make it clear of like they make it clear that they want you to know their political beliefs. Do you know what I mean? So it's it is certainly shifting that way, buddy. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always glad to hear people's opinions, because then I can know that they're not a person worth talking to.
It's a great point. It's a great point.
Because like I don't want to start a friendship or a relationship and then find out like years down the line that that they're a racist, or that they're homophobic. I like to know that early on.
Yeah, no, I get you, man. I do get
So like I would rather in the first interaction people just tell me all of their views, so I can be like, thank you, I will never see you again. Bye bye.
you. Subscribe to the movie mates. Bye.
Yeah, bye. I mean, I wouldn't want
Yeah,
a
you wouldn't want
racist
their
or a homophobe
subscription.
subscribing to us,
Yeah,
honestly,
no.
because they're just not going to like what we have to say, because uh, we're not exceptionally political, but we understand human rights,
Yeah.
and want everyone to be treated equally, which should be the absolute base level of how you treat people. Everyone should be treated equally, and that's literally like the least you can possibly do. Uh, you know, and it's just embarrassing. Like yeah, I don't want to get aggressive with this, but like it's
It's
embarrassing when
embarrassing.
people when people don't actually think that.
Yeah,
It
I know.
just like it genuinely shocks me, and I think I have been surprised by some people who I didn't expect it from when they share a view. And I've used this phrase a lot, taken aback. You know,
I get you. No,
there's
I
just a
understand. I
moment where I
understand.
contemplate, like, I'm like, this friendship is not worth it.
I understand, man. You know what? The more and more I think about it, I think this might have to go in must-see movie mates just for the level of in-depth discussion here. We've sort of ventured uncharted territory for us. So, what do you think?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I mean, this film is inherently political, so I think had we not discussed it, we wouldn't really have been analyzing the film. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad we got into it.
you too.
But you know, as we sort of talked about, very famously, one of the biggest strengths of this film is obviously its cast, but it's also the soundtrack, as written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And the soundtrack for this musical has 46 songs. And I
Yeah,
have to say, like, even if you don't like the musical, you have to respect it, surely. Like the memory of the actors, and their ability to still beautifully perform the songs, whilst also trying to juggle the memory of like every lyric for every song.
you know what it is, man. I think it perfect. I agree completely, dude. Uh, and I think it perfectly balances like quality and quantity, which is hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously have months to rehearse, but I think even if I had their talent, I would not have their memory. I could never learn songs like as many songs as that, and remember every lyric. And every night they have to give the same level of exceptional performance because I mean, that as we said, there's not a scene or a moment cut from the version that we see on Disney Plus. So this had to be perfectly performed, and it is. There was not one slip up, one moment that I questioned what was on the screen. One moment
Yeah.
that some people did question was I don't know if you've read about this, but the character of King George III, whenever he sings, he sort of like spits and dribbles, and I don't know whether it's an intentional choice or it's just a balance of the fact he's doing a British accent whilst singing with it, and that's sort of it's maybe the tension on his
Yeah,
mouth that's causing that. But
I
like
didn't pick up
people seem
on
pretty grossed out.
it.
Uh, I mean, yeah, people seem pretty grossed out by it, but I mean, you know, I think it adds to the character because he's meant to be like, I mean, I can't comment again on the historical figure, but he's presented as sort of like a gross creep and like the butt of the joke, who's like, who's oppressing the people of America. So I mean, it felt in character to me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yes. So we talked a bit about the runtime, and it did genuinely scare me because I would say the longest film I've ever seen is Titanic and Avengers Endgame, which are both 3 hours, and this comes in very close at 2 hours
240.
40.
Yeah.
And I think that you certainly feel the runtime, like it does not feel like a short film, but that's not necessarily a criticism because it just gives you a longer time to sit in this great story.
Absolutely, buddy. And we both watched it in two segments, and I think it works definitely for this film with intermission. So, yeah, man, I think it's perfect for one single viewing if you have the time, or two separate viewings, man.
Yeah, because I mean, normally, you have the intermission, and or sometimes you don't even have an intermission, but going from act to act, there's usually like many musicals and many plays like adhere to like uh, is it whose was it? Was it Aristotle's three unities, or was it someone else?
Aristotle, yeah, yeah, Aristotle.
Yeah, his three unities of like time, place, action. So normally like between acts, there's hours or minutes or days between them. But
Hmm.
between Act One and Act Two of this film, there's years. A couple, like a decade at least.
Yeah.
I didn't actually catch exactly how many years, but it's many years. So I mean, taking a solid half hour to an hour break, in between the two acts is, I think, perfectly understandable.
Absolutely, and the fact that actors are like David Diggs are playing two different characters is testament to their acting ability.
100%. Did you have anything final on the film, or
And
would you
nothing
like
for
to
me, buddy.
hop into ratings?
I'd love to hear your rating.
Yeah, so once again, I think because this is like an uncharted type of film that we've never talked about before,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a film in actuality. It's a very, high production value, like stage musical that's just, filmed on cameras.
Hmm.
Uh, so I would have to again balance, my enjoyment with the quality of the film. So with the quality of how it's shot, the quality of the production is a 10 out of 10. Like I don't know how I could possibly rate it lower, but I would say I enjoyed it at probably an 8.5 or a 9, just because I had like minute issues with it, but I'm not I had an excellent time with this film.
That's
Like,
great, man.
what would you say about it?
You know that I thought you made some fantastic points, buddy. I thought your review was amazing, and for me, man, I think yeah, quality of production, set design, especially the lighting and the songs, 10 out of 10. And in terms of enjoyment, you know, I thought all the actors were fantastic, and it was a very compelling plot, and it made me very interested in American history, which I found strange because I had very little interest in it before. So I'd probably give it an 8 for enjoyment, man. I had a surprisingly very good time with this. Certainly better than our last Disney Plus review, I tell you.
Artemis Fowl, that was garbage. That was so shit. Like, yeah, just just that gap in quality. I mean, like, I would say what one of the like I think the first ever original Disney Plus film was Lady and the Tramp, the live action version, and it kind of got a bit of flack. But I mean, compare that to Artemis Fowl, and like, whew, it's night and day.
It really is, man. It goes to show with the runtime. You know, we talked about that for about 25 minutes, and this has been like an hour and 15, hour and 20. So, you know, it goes to say the more we have to chat about, usually the better the film is.
Yeah, definitely. It has more substance, context, meaning, and that we can drill down into, and like exactly like I think the best films have you ask questions about them.
Listen, thank you very much for today, man, for giving me the opportunity to watch this film. Had a blast with you. And yeah, thank you very much, viewers. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And comment your thoughts on Hamilton in the comment section down below. We'd love to hear your thoughts about it if you agreed with us or disagreed. And yeah, email us with any podcast suggestions or questions at moviematespodcast@gmail.com. Callum or myself will always be there to answer any of those. And yeah, thanks, Callum. Thanks, everyone. Take care and bye bye.
Bye bye.